There are many ways to die in TF2. It's part of what makes the game great, but among those are some that really shouldn't exist. For example, you can shoot enemies through doors, blow them up through walls, and hit them through floors, and that's barely scratching the surface. So I thought, what if I created a game where I randomly draw these challenges and have to complete them to fill in spots on a bingo board? And that's exactly what I did for 4.5 hours. So let me walk you through some of the highlights as we begin our journey. The first challenge I rolled was Ornament Crit kill. There's a weird glitch in the game where for the Rap Assassin and Sandman, you can get guaranteed crits on your ball. To do this, you have to swing once and then throw your ball. If it's not a crit, you need to switch classes, switch back to Scout, and try again until you get one. Then, every time you swing before throwing your ball, it'll be a crit. Now, when I started this challenge, it took me a few attempts before I realized I didn't have the glitch active. So to make sure you never screw up like me, make sure the ball is dripping those succulent crit juices when you throw it.
Yum.
After some misses and a hit on a sniper who died to someone else, I found myself in a 1v1 with an engineer who I got the better of and watched bleed to death. So without too much trouble, I got my first spot on the board. For my second challenge, I rolled Deep Fried Kill, which is something I made up inspired by the color correction exploit. This is much less known, but here's how it works. If a map has the color correction entity in it, and you load it up with SV cheats, you can type color correction UI in the console, which will bring up a window called Color Correction Tools. There, you can override the map's color correction settings with your own to make the game look deep fried. From there, any map you load into with that entity will also look deep fried. So I thought it'd be worth throwing into the challenge, and to give it that added bit of difficulty, I had to get a kill with it as Scout at the 2-fort sink, just like I showed in one of my shorts. So after deep frying my game and joining a random 2-fort, I went straight to the sink. But nobody would run in. Instead, the soldier kept jiggle peeking and firing rockets.
I'm gonna die.
I had to retreat for HP, but realized 2-fort didn't have any med packs, so when I returned, I blew up. After coming back, my game froze, so I died again. For several lives after, I was struggling to even get there. The enemy team was dialed in, while mine was busy doing other things.
Oh, brother.
They were even camping the sewer exit with multiple soldiers. But eventually, I made it back just as I killed an engineer. It wasn't as clean as I had hoped, but given the difficulty, I was more than satisfied and earned my second spot on the board. For my third challenge, I rolled Teammate Kill, which for this video, we can call Teletrap Kill. My original plan was for this to be more of a troll challenge where I'd build a teleporter on the edge of a cliff, have a teammate take it, and then walk off. But things got interesting. I joined a game of Frontier, which has 2 areas where you can do this. Since I was on blue, I had to sneak past enemy lines to the second one, since the other was too close to red spawn. There was also a red engineer building nearby, something I only realized after hearing him through the walls.
Why is there an NG right there?
Why he was building back here, I had no idea, but I safely navigated to the end and built a teleporter on the cliff edge. Soon enough, a friendly soldier took it and walked off the map. But that's when I realized something. It's possible to place a teleporter in the pit, and doing that would mean instant death upon teleportation. So I practiced a couple of times before getting auto-balanced. But this was actually a good thing. It meant I could just turn around after leaving spawn without having to fight anyone. And the third time was a charm because I did it.
Oh my god, I placed it!
Now all I had to do was place an entrance at spawn and wait for the first victim. But instead of a teammate, it was actually an enemy spy who took my teleporter. Imagine being that guy. I wasn't finished though, so I built a new entrance at spawn and watched teammate after teammate take my teleporter and die. I feel bad for this pyro who thanked me moments before his death. After that, he tried to warn my teammates to no avail, and eventually, we lost. Was it worth it?
Heck yes!
After filling in my third spot on the board, I rolled Stuck Launch Kill. A stuck launch is when you force your way into something solid and then free yourself after accumulating a bunch of velocity. The most straightforward way to do this is to place a building near where the payload cart turns, and then use the cart to push you inside. From there, you use the Wrangler to damage yourself, building velocity. And when you're ready, you remove the building and go flying. As cool as it would have been to pull this off in casual, I was struggling. Time and time again, I'd die before even getting a chance to ramp up my velocity. And the worst part wasn't that I was failing, it was the swarm of spies that kept trying to touch me inappropriately the entire game.
What's going on?
While my teammates did nothing. I'm not exaggerating. I've never seen so many spies all over the place. It got to the point where my entire team kept spamming spy while leaving spawn. Still, I gave it a few more attempts, but after realizing things weren't about to change,
I knew that was a spy too. Yeah, there's no chance.
I had to call it. My next challenge was Executioner Crit Kill, which is the taunt associated with the Scorch Shot. What makes this taunt unique is that it doesn't guarantee a kill, and you can fire random crits. And similar to Scout's crit exploit, you can guarantee crits. You simply fire the Scorch Shot until you get a random crit, and then every time you do the taunt, it will also be a crit. So after loading into Badwater on red, I found myself a nice spot on some rocks and started spamming crits. And while I didn't kill anyone right away, I did force a medic to pop Uber and sent this sniper back to resupply twice. He was clearly aggroed because I kid you not, he sat there waiting for like 2 minutes straight until I re-peaked. Congratulations, you hit a stationary target. At this point, the payload cart was entering the tunnel, so I went there and started spamming more crits where I earned my first kill. But I wasn't about to let this moment pass, so I kept spamming, harassing everybody at the end of the tunnel until I was eventually killed. Finally, another spot on the board. Challenge 6 was Telefrag. Now, telefragging isn't an exploit in itself, but there's a way to time exactly when to teleport, and therefore telefrag. You just have to enter a taunt immediately before teleporting with a Eureka effect, and your teleport will be cached until you exit the taunt. And because the timing is very precise, I used this bind with my FPS set to 400. So after making sure everything was working in this Badwater game, I went off to set my trap. I figured this area by the tower was good enough, but I was quickly hunted down and killed. So I came back a second time and was about to cache my teleport, but I failed and was killed by a demo knight.
No!
So I picked a new spot, successfully cached my teleport, and lured in this rightly confused NG, ending his journey. Just like that, I now had 5 spots filled out on the board. For challenge 7, I rolled Spawn Kill, which is killing an enemy who just spawned in. Now, there are multiple places where you can do this, but I had a particular one in mind that I already showed off in one of my shorts. So I joined another game of Frontier and made it past red spawn. I almost bumped into this sus sniper, but fortunately, I didn't have to engage. I crouched into my lineup and fired 8 stickies into red's next spawn room. As soon as my team captured the point, a demo man still in his old spawn instantly teleported to this one where I blew him up. But I wasn't done yet, so I threw in some more stickies, watched my HUD for the respawn, and killed the same guy. 2 times was clearly enough for him, so he came back around and finished me with a sword. Joke's on him because I filled out another spot on my bingo board. For my next challenge, I rolled Gunslinger Crit Kill, but there was no way for me to do this since it required a person on the other team to cooperate, and neither my buddy nor I got auto-balanced.
This isn't gonna be possible. What was I thinking?
So I re-rolled for Pixel Walk Kill.
Okay, this is gonna be an easy one.
This is a relatively common phenomenon where you can stand on top of sloped brushes and certain displacements. But if you thought this would be easy, you're greatly mistaken. I started this challenge back on Badwater because you can pixel walk on these slope bits next to blue spawn. But I ran into a problem. There was a sniper main, and he killed me again again, so I tried to demo garden him, but of course the crit didn't land and he got away. And by then, our team had pushed the cart far enough that there weren't any enemies left in the area. Still, I tried my luck and unloaded a bunch of pipes down the alley, which surprisingly got a lot of hits, but no kills. Fast forwarding to the next round, I tried again as Soldier, but only managed to fire 3 rockets before getting shot off and rolled by the other team. With no other pixel walks left in the map, I had to search for a new one. Now on Steel, I found this spot by the second point that seemed promising. But of course, I missed the jump right after the round started and was chased away by a spy. I eventually returned and made it back up, but failed to kill that spy, as well as an engineer who saw me through the fence. The following 2 tries were also unsuccessful, leaving me to retreat to the only other spot I knew about, which was right above the last point. Here is a pixel walk that's basically useless because you can just jump on the sign right next to it. But a pixel walk is a pixel walk, and I only cared about completing the challenge. Still, I was often failing the jump and falling to my death, getting owned by this pyro, sniped in the face, you name it, it happened. I was so close to crashing out over kills I thought I should have had, but then finally, a wandering spy showed up in the wrong neighborhood and I clapped his Now I had 7 spots on the board. For my next challenge, I rolled Flog Taunt Cancel, which is something I do on a regular basis. If your Flog Taunt gets interrupted, you get an extra second or so of Uber End crits. My quest began on Swiftwater, where I was considering the possibilities, because it's possible to taunt cancel off of the trees, albeit very difficult, so I decided that the best method would be to land on someone's head. Soon enough, an opportunity presented itself with this medic, but he stepped to the side at the last moment, so I missed. Blue then pushed through the tunnel, so I re-strategized. This bridge was the perfect spot to drop on someone's head, so I waited until this heavy who didn't know how to look up came close, but somehow I failed to initiate the taunt, and ironically, I died to a flog. But I was determined, so the next time I had an opportunity, I stuck the landing, taking out a medic heavy combo and forcing another to pop Uber. Unfortunately, I didn't get a good spot on the board, but at least I was at a good pace. Challenge number 10 was Wallstick, or wall bug as you probably know it. This works by finding a diagonal brush and strafing into it while mid-air. These are super common, and I was lucky to join a game of Gorge because there were spots at each stage. Because I started on blue, I headed over to these fences by the first point and stuck myself above them, but because of how far I was, I couldn't hit anyone. I tried a few more times in nearby spots, but had no luck. After our team captured the point, I shifted my goal to this wall, but getting there was nearly impossible because of the sentry. By the time I did make it up there, the round was already over. But I was optimistic for the next one because there's no way a blue player would look up to find me here. And sure enough, I got 2 quick kills with my cow mangler before dying from revenge. Another spot on the board. After 2 quick challenges, I rolled what was perhaps the hardest of them all, floor kill. In one of my shorts, I showed how you can shoot through floors with certain projectile weapons, and what makes this difficult is that you're basically blind. So I buckled up for a game of Suijin with the Huntsman. My plan was to shoot an arrow through the bridge and get a lucky hit. So for my first few attempts, I went under my team's bridge and started spamming arrows. But there was a problem. There were hardly any enemies crossing over, you could see my unusual effect and bow through the bridge, and I kept getting flanked. One of my teammates was also confused, and the enemy team was questioning my intellect. So I tried to reason with them, disabled my unusual effect, and went under the enemy bridge where there was more traffic. I thought maybe I could try timing my shots off respawn times, but then I noticed something.
Wait, I can kind of see their shadows when they come.
Under this bridge, I could see the shadows of enemies before they crossed over me. So as long as my reaction time was quick, I could wait for a shadow and then look up and fire. As crazy as this is, it was working. I managed to hit 2 players and confuse others, and after a while, this happened.
Yes! Holy crap!
This is probably the craziest kill I've ever gotten.
Voice crack!
And I can't help but wonder what was going through this pyro's mind. Nonetheless, I earned another spot on the board. For the next challenge, I rolled Flog Crit Swap. So, I was back to the Flog. This time, I had to activate crits and then swap my flamethrower out with another. This preserves your crit timer, allowing you to fire guaranteed crits out of any flamethrower. So I joined another Badwater game and started charging up my flog meter with the detonator. Just as my meter filled up, I was about to pick up a stock flamethrower lying on the ground, but it disappeared. Not to worry though, because I came across a Dragon's Fury. So I activated my crits, picked it up, and WM1'd. But there was no one near me, so I had to start over. This time, I found another stock flamethrower, so I went through the same sequence and chased down a pyro. Now, my board was starting to get crowded, and I knew there'd only be a few challenges left. For challenge 13, I rolled Contracker Animation Taunt Kill. When you open the Contracker, your player enters a custom animation, and if you close it and quickly use any other taunt, instead of using the taunt's animation, you'll still be in the Contracker pose. The goal was to get a taunt kill while locked in this pose, and for the map and taunt, my viewers picked Pier and the Putus Pow. Now, because Pier has the color correction entity in it, my deep-fried color correction settings from earlier were active, but not to fret because the demo looks fine. It didn't take long before I spotted an easy victim. A sniper's shadow was somehow showing through this metal platform. I pretended like that made sense and dropped behind him. He was tunnel visioned on something, so I took advantage and got an easy pow. But I felt like that was too easy, so I tried again, but was unsuccessful for the rest of the match. I did get another kill on Applejack, but it was against a friendly, so there's not much to say. An easy spot on the board, let's move on to the next challenge. For this, I rolled something you've probably seen a bunch. Kill through spawn door. There are multiple ways to do this, but I went with the simplest, which is using a flamethrower. After joining another game of Badwater, I went to blue spawn and saw some mercs lollygagging on the other side. So I called my buddy over to help me shoot straight through the door and vaporize them. That was the quickest challenge yet, but sadly, it didn't bring me any closer to a bingo. My next challenge was floating sticky kill, which is when you shoot a sticky that floats for whatever reason, and then get a kill with it. I was originally gonna try this on Moss Rock with a train, but long story short, my team got rolled before the train even drove past. So I returned to Sweden, since you can shoot stickies on the spawn door, and when it opens, they float. After the round started, I tried sticky jumping out of the water, but died. Getting to the enemy spawn was actually more difficult than I expected. There were enemies on the adjacent roof, and a sentry guarding the exit. After dealing with both of them, I tried laying a trap, but the stickies got air blasted. So I had to stay low for a while behind this pointy thing until the spawn cleared out. When the coast was clear, I shot a few stickies and hoped this pyro wouldn't notice. He did, but another ran out of spawn and blew up to my trap before he got me. For this spot, I got something good and was even closer to a bingo. Funny enough, I rolled Kamikaze through surface. For this challenge, I had to perform the Kamikaze taunt and kill an enemy through something. Since I was already on Sweden, I just switched to soldier and went back under the bridge. But the first few attempts resulted in me getting chased down and killed. But at least I wasn't being made fun of. By my mistake, on my first real attempt, I called medic. You're only supposed to call for a medic when setting off the explosion through a wall. But when I tried again without calling medic, I still died. I verified that this actually worked by trying it on my side and realized I'd been standing in the wrong spot, because after going back, it was working. This time, I paid attention to my HUD for respawns and tried timing the taunt so that the explosion would occur at the same time an enemy was above me. I was barely too slow the first time, but on the second, I nailed a pyro. Then, out of sheer luck, a soldier, and then another pyro. I would have probably gotten more had it not been for the first pyro who came back for revenge. With another spot filled on the board, I now had 4 out of 9 spots that could give me a bingo. For my 17th challenge, I rolled Rampstick kill. This is similar to wall-sticking, but for ramps. If you equip the base jumper and activate your parachute while strafing into a ramp, you can get stuck. And the best part is you can let go of your controls and look around without slipping off. For this, I went to 2 Fort because there happens to be a near vertical ramp above the buildings. After sticky jumping and deploying my chute, I got stuck on my first try and laid a couple of sticky traps. But I wasn't paying attention and missed the perfect opportunity to blow up a medic. And right after, a heavy with the intel. Still, they didn't know how to look up, so I was okay. Soon after, a spy walked past and fell victim to my trap. But I wanted to see if I could get some more kills, so I hung in there. Sure enough, the spy returned, but I was thirsty for blood, so I knocked him away. Meanwhile, his teammate contemplated his existence after seeing my stickies fall out of the sky. He was in such deep thought that one of my teammates actually ran in and killed him. Rest in peace, maggot. And with that, I got this spot filled out on my board and got bingo. Bingo! 4.5 hours and 16 challenges completed, I was finally done. Thank you for watching. This is LED, switching off.